Sooner Nation, welcome into another episode of Sooner Spotlight, your all-access pass for all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at RealJoshMahler. You can check out the show, the Sooner Spotlight, on Instagram, at Sooner Spotlight. Go follow us on there. We're trying to build up that Instagram page, so if you would go over there, we're going to try to post more and more as we come up with bigger and better ideas as well, keeping you updated with the show so you know when we've got new episodes released or any kind of news about the show. Follow us over there to keep up with the show and so much more. Sooner Spotlight is also a member of the OU Insider content lineup, so go get signed up at ouinsider.com today. Get signed up and become a member of the greatest Oklahoma sports community out there. It truly is amazing. We're going to be talking with Brandon Drumm from OU Insider here in just a moment. But and we even talked a little bit about how amazing that platform is. Not only do you get to keep up with all of the news and get the inside scoop on the news right away, but that inside scoop also gives you a story behind big news like what we're going to talk about here in just a moment. There's all kinds of things that you are missing out on if you're not a member of ouinsider.com. So go get signed up at ouinsider.com today. And trust me, it's worth it. Give it 1 month and just pay $9.95 for 1 month real quick. Give it a shot, and I think you'll be surprised how much you enjoy it over there. And you can interact. You can be part of the discussion, have your questions answered, and so much more at ouinsider.com. Like I said, and as you can probably see by the title, there's big news that has dropped with the Oklahoma Sooners in the spring transfer portal. It's news that comes to a shock. And I think there's a lot of overreaction to it, and rightfully so for some reason. For part of the reason to overreact to this, I get it. It's big news. It's a big time recruit, a big time guy with a big upside in David Stone and his departure, deciding to hit the transfer portal. But there's a lot of information that I think is being misconstrued about David Stone and why he decided to leave. And that's why I asked Brandon Drumm to come on with me today. I've got him to explain the situation a little bit more. We're going to dive deep into it. We're going to explain why he's leaving, how we should look at his departure, if there's any other departures to follow, and we'll also discuss why there's not really a whole lot to worry about here. Trust the process and who to push the blame on. We'll talk about it all here with Brandon Drumm. Oklahoma fans, welcome in. We've got a big news that's already dropped last night, and shout out to OU Insider for being one of the first on top of the topic. I've got Brandon Drumm here with me from OU Insider to talk about David Stone hitting the portal, some of the big news that dropped around him leaving, and then going a little further into it. Brandon, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. This is going to be a fun little topic, I'm sure. Stressful topic, but fun. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the decision to leave, what's the reaction when hearing about Stone throughout the spring and talking? There's been a lot of big news coming from him, a lot of big expectations, high expectations. Would he have been a starter? Would he have been a key contributor to Oklahoma this upcoming season?
Key contributor, yes. Starter, no. Look, people need to remember you still have Grayson Halton, the guy that led the SEC for sacks for defensive tackles, right, last season. That guy by the name of Dominic Williams, who everybody wanted, 2 springs ago, or last spring. And he made a big impact on Oklahoma's defensive tackle room. And then Jaden Jackson, who was a freshman All-American. So you got those 3 laced in there as like your top 3 guys. And then you have to throw in David Stone. I think he's probably your 4th guy. Marcus Strong is in there. Trent Wilson, a freshman defensive tackle who's exploded onto the scene, no doubt about it, is going to contribute this year. He's there as well. So it's a loss. I think this hurts more for 2026 than it does for 25. And what I mean by that is I think Oklahoma was counting on the IMG Academy duo and Jaden Jackson and David Stone to be the guys in 2026. I don't think they were ever supposed to be the guys in 25. That was always going to be Dominic Williams, Grayson Halton. That's just the facts. But this hurts. Former 5-star kid that grew up 10 minutes down the road from the University of Oklahoma. And I'm sure we'll get into the whys, the whats, and the hows. But needless to say, this sucks for Oklahoma. It just sucks.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, let's get into the why. What exactly seems to have been the reason for David Stone's departure? Because obviously, when big news like this breaks, you got a 5-star out the door, really a 5-star plus, and you've got him out the door and his high potential and what he brings to the team, and like you just mentioned, not just for what he brings to the team now, but for the future and moving forward. That's what you've got to keep on building towards. What is the why? What's the reason for Stone leaving?
I mean, everybody's going to point to it and they're going to say, look, OU's broke. OU's broke. Well, no. Like that same OU that just outbid everybody for Jake Michaela, that just outbid everybody for Jaden Ott. Those two, that OU's broke? No, far from it. It is NIL based, but it's NIL based in the fact that what he played 94 snaps last year. He had 1 sack, right? Couple tackles for losses. Did not live up to the hype. He was injured a little bit, but it was more so he wasn't doing the things that needed to be done off the field within practice, film room, and stuff like that, that hindered him more on the field. And he did a lot of growing up this year, but Oklahoma wanted to make sure through their evaluation, right, the valuation of NIL, that he was making what they felt he was worth at this point in time. The unfortunate part is there's people around him that were, as they like to say, sucking on the teat a little bit, and were taken from him. And they continually took from him. He was making a whole lot of money in 2024. Even with the valuation, even with the drop in NIL. And I hate to use that phrasing, drop in NIL, because he still was incentive-based. He still was going to be making dang near what he was making last year as long as he hit his markers, right? So his base salary wasn't near, it was near. It wasn't what it was last year, but it still was on the higher end of 95% of the players that played that position across college football. So Oklahoma was willing and able to still pay him. But when you have, as I said, people around you sucking on the teat and they don't want to carry their end of the bargain, and you have an 18, 19-year-old kid that's laid with all the responsibility to take care of those people, money starts to run dry. And then you're looking going, well, I need this and that. I can't afford this NIL valuation anymore. Something they agreed to in December. It sounds like he wanted to come and talk about it. I think Oklahoma was willing to negotiate a little bit there, but not get to where he wanted it to be again. And I think that was where the issue kind of butted heads. And I want to also make this very clear to everybody. Todd Bates, if you haven't paid attention to social media and you haven't paid attention to everything everybody says about that man, that is one of the greatest people as a person that's ever worked at the University of Oklahoma, cares for his players, loves his players, will do anything for his players. He met with David Stone multiple times, every day for like the last 2 weeks, trying to make this right, trying to do everything, work around the situation and make it work to put less stress on the kid, because the people around him weren't going to put less stress on him. It was up to Oklahoma to do that, because it's a sad situation. It really is. Like this situation, you have to feel for David Stone. You have to feel for Todd Bates. You have to feel for Brent Venables, right? Like those are the people you feel for, because those are the three that try to do right. And David Stone really did want to be a Sooner. Like he really did. Like I think people think that's lip service when I say that. He really did. It's just at the end of the day, when you feel obligated to those around you that maybe you shouldn't feel obligated towards them. And then, and the reality is as adults, we wouldn't feel obligated, but a kid is always going to feel obligated to those people that have been around them their whole lives, and they don't really have the voice to step up and say no yet. And that's where this thing got. It is very, very unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and you bring out a really key part of that too, is that, I feel like a lot of the fan base and those who are critiquing this decision for David Stone to leave are just looking at it from the perspective of the way that college football is going nowadays,
Yeah.
that you're just chasing NIL. And it's not really that for, the NIL plays into it, right? But it's not really chasing NIL is really the heart of the issue. And I guess that's kind of the frustration for me going on social media or looking around at the message boards, blaming, chasing money. I mean, that's not really what it is. It's more that, if you put yourself in the shoes of a 19-year-old kid, I believe he's 19, right?
Yeah.
Turns 20 in November. So,
Yes.
he's a 19-year-old kid. And, I think I've had this discussion with my family before. If we were to hit the jackpot and win $20 million or whatever that, it's going for nowadays, and you say, well, I'd give mom and dad this money, and then I'd spread it around to my siblings, and then you realize, well, I've got cousins that feel like siblings, and well, I guess I got to share my wealth there. And you talk about that, in all hypothetical terms, and if you put yourself in that situation, that's what David Stone or
Yeah.
a kid at his age is going through, and you want to take care of mom's the one that raised you, and especially for a kid that didn't really come from too much.
Right.
And that's something that people are kind of taking digs at a kid that is just trying to make a really big decision, and ultimately is trying to make a decision not just for himself either, for his
Yeah.
family and those who are really close to him around him. And it's really difficult. So I'm glad you kind of share the same sentiment, that I feel bad for David Stone and for those
Yeah.
that are trying to keep him there at Oklahoma.
Yeah. It's rough. Like when you have, and I've been real careful of how I've worded all this, because you don't want to come out as vindictive, or you don't want to accuse too much, right? Because
Yeah.
there's always two sides to every story. That said, even people outside of the Switzer Center, they're all saying, like, the kid had a few properties, right? Like that were given to people around him that he was taking care of. And let's just say that no matter the amount that was made or being made, the spending or unwillingness to stop spending didn't stop, right? Like they just kept going and going and forcing more pressure on the kid. This is not about David Stone wanting to leave. This is about a situation where he feels, like I said, obligated to take care of those around. And we hear this story, you hear it professionally all the time. I think this is the first time in OU's history that it's been publicly talked about since NIL hit up, where they're needing to take care of a bunch of people and there's just not enough money to go around. And the sad situation is, and I think if you look at it from an economic standpoint, what he was making at Oklahoma is probably what he's going to make. Even the dollar sign looks bigger, right? Like $1 million or whatever, whoever Miami or whoever offers. And Miami's the team you keep hearing about early on. That dollar sign, that's great. But the cost of living comes into play.
Yeah.
And when you get that cost of living into play, what does it really add up to? What does the actual number, if you put the cost of living side by side, what are you getting? And that is also something that OU and everybody else tried to explain to them. But when you're in that situation and you see things differently because you haven't come from a lot, like we don't know their full situation. I don't think we ever will.
Mhm.
But what we do know is that it costs a whole heck of a lot to live in Miami than it does in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, and,
And
and
by
you
10 times more.
Yeah, you even mentioned too, kind of being incentive based. I was trying to keep away from that because from that terminology, but I don't really know how else to describe it. You perform better.
Production based.
Yeah, production based, I guess. You perform better, you're going to get a bigger number,
Yes.
out of the collective, and on top of that, you perform better and you get into a contributor role this season and start to rack up stats and start
Mhm.
a couple games, and your name is recognized more. Then you've got brands that also want to work in those deals with you. So that's why online I was using incentive based. Yeah, he got cut, but it was also it's not really much of a cut when you factor in everything that he could have made and possibly made even more because of those
Yeah, you
what
hit your
I call
markers.
incentive.
Yeah, you hit your markers. You hit what they've asked you to do. You are going to make a whole heck of a lot more money. And guess what? Welcome to the real world. Welcome to how jobs work.
Yeah.
If you hit this and this, like I'll use a prime example, former boss, OU insider. Like if I hit a certain number of subs, I got a certain, like if we grew from when I was hired to this certain amount, I got a certain amount bump, right? Like that's just how it worked. And if we didn't hit those markers, I didn't get the money. Like that's how the real world, that's how every job works. You get a raise, you get a bonus, you get all these certain things based on the markers and the production that you've made, right? And that's all that was. But when you live in a I guess instant gratification society now because of social media, I think that gets lost on certain people.
Yeah. Yeah, and a big part of this too, I think a lot of the blame might go towards the university. It might go towards David Stone. Might
Right.
whoever the blame is getting pushed towards. Personally, I look at this and I push all of the blame for any of these stories. The Nico Iamaleava story, pushing all of this towards the NCAA. I mean,
Yes.
where were the regulations or the rules, maybe the standard for how all of this was supposed to work out? Because originally, NIL was brought to college sports, collegiate sports, in trying to allow players to still host their YouTube channel or to go out and get a deal with Nike. It
Uh-uh.
wasn't really meant to bring in this bidding war between schools where now kids don't want to go to a school because of championships. They want to go because they're going to offer them more money.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if you're going to blame anyone, you blame the NCAA for not setting the standard.
They lost. They are like that 90-year-old grandma that has to put their denture in but forgets. Every time they bite, you're just feeling the gums and nothing else. And it's sad. It's sad what's happened to college football. I said this on our rapid reaction that we posted on YouTube yesterday, and it's up on our OU Insider YouTube page. And I'm with Josh Pate. I'm not anti-player. I think players need to be paid. 100% need to be paid.
Yeah.
I think they need to earn and be paid whatever they bring to the table on the field and within the fan base as far as earnings go within the athletic department. That said, I'm pro college football, and the federal regulations that need to be made needs to be had and made quickly throughout Congress, throughout something needs to be done to stop this. I don't. It's the Wild West times 1,000. Like it
Yeah.
just is. There's no sense. There's no rhyme or reason for anything that's going on other than negligence. Negligence on the NCAA. Like they could have done something, but they waved the white. Mark Emmett waved the white flag and said, "You all manage yourselves." And now look where we're at. Something needs to be done to where the universities can not just hold the kids' money, but help them monitor and divvy it out properly. And yeah, you're probably gonna have to deal with lawsuits from a family like that or people like that are wanting to get from said player, right? But at the end of the day, no judge is gonna sit there and agree that somebody just deserves the money that this person's earning. Like that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
So something needs to be done to help monitor this, to help the kids with their funding, to help the kids get and put the money where it needs to be. Yeah, you don't need to not give to those around that maybe need it, but there needs to be some sort of, I guess, monitoring and some sort of, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but doesn't need to be as much as what's been going on. There's a lot of people taking from these kids. They're using these kids and taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
so sad. It's
and
so sad.
I don't even like the comparison to the NFL anymore because at least in
No,
the NFL, the
there's
free,
rules.
free agency, there's rules. Even with contracts, you know how long they're going to be staying. You don't even
Mhm.
have a kid stay here for a full year now. That's literally what we're running into with this situation. I don't even like that because there's not some kind of governing body. I think conferences should have their own rules within.
Yes.
Helped by a guy like Greg Sankey and whoever else is helping with the SEC. I think conferences. I think schools individually should also have their own bylaws, or however you want
Mhm.
to whatever term you want to use. And then, like you said too, where are the true? I don't even like when people say so and so's agents or representatives, because a lot of times that's their father. It's their
Mhm.
their uncle who wants to dip in and get a little piece of that money. I think that's what you're seeing big time with the Nico case. Is that it's not really Nico making this big decision.
No,
It's
he's his
the
dad.
yeah, it's those that should be advising him, elsewhere, to make better decisions. And in fact, he might actually end up losing money in on the deal.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Um,
There's always
going
an uncle, man. Fred
Yeah,
Akers said that. I think it was on The Greatest That Never Was with right? Was that was where's The Greatest That Never Was? And Marcus Dupree, he said there's always an uncle.
yeah,
And it's true, there is. There's always that uncle dipping their hand into something.
yeah. I mean, it's the adults that should know better. It's the adults that should have the advice to give to those.
Adults,
Yeah,
air
adults with
quotes.
the quotes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a sad situation because of that. I know you and I were just talking off air a little bit about this, but how does Oklahoma sit in the defensive tackle room? I know that
Mhm.
there's transfers that they're looking at, and in fact, trying to trade stone for stone.
Yeah.
And then also, does David Stone's departure worry us about anyone maybe possibly following him or
Mm.
anything along those lines?
Yeah. So first off, we talked about Jalen Stone, the Southeast Missouri defensive tackle, who everybody's after. Everybody
Yeah,
wants him right now. He's one of the top defensive tackles in the portal. He's visiting Oklahoma on Sunday. I expect Oklahoma to be in a pretty good spot when that's all said and done. I wouldn't be shocked if Oklahoma ended up with him. So that would give Oklahoma some added depth there. And then there's Marad Watson out of Syracuse. I believe he only had one sack as well. He's very similar to David Stone as far as like production last year. 3 batted passes, 10 QB pressures, one sack. There wasn't a lot of production. And then another one that name that keeps popping up is Jay Toya from UCLA. We'll see where Oklahoma goes there with both those guys. But I do expect Oklahoma to now they're probably going to, they wanted one. Now they're probably going to add 2 in the portal.
yeah,
Like it's a necessity at this point. As far as others that could follow, you know, there's some buzz on Danny Okoye, unfortunately, defensive end, but it's more of just I think there's frustration. He's very close with David Stone,
yeah,
and there's frustration with that whole deal. It's not an NIL deal, at least right now. This is an NIL based frustration or anything like that. It's just frustration over the situation at Oklahoma. So we'll see where it goes. I think I'll say this right now. I think people are leaning towards him staying, but 5 hours prior to David Stone hitting the portal, Oklahoma thought they also had that squelched
yeah,
and taken care of. So never say never. I'm going to continue to say that. Never say never in college football. This is the unfortunate byproduct of what the NCAA is allowed to happen, and here we are. But if this does truly happen with Danny Okoye, then It's a it would not be good, but at the same time, defensive end's one position where you feel pretty good about, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and
So
overall, I think anywhere on that defensive side of the ball too, you probably feel pretty confident. If you were to lose any more on the offense, you're starting to maybe question a little bit. Um, defense, you've got to feel pretty good overall. Um,
yeah,
and one thing too, because I know you guys usually try not to, I was actually surprised you even threw Danny's name out there. I know you guys usually don't throw out names, and I wanted to kind of address that because I feel like people give you guys flack at times for not giving names or not giving specific details where or giving your inside scoop on who you're talking to, who your source is. People
mhm,
don't realize you guys can't do that. I mean, for one,
yeah,
you can't say so and so is planning to enter the transfer portal before they announce that.
yeah.
That's their announcement to
Well,
make. And then even for your sources, you can't just give out your sources because that's inside information. That
yeah.
you've got to keep close to the vest for many reasons, and not only that, but outing your source as well is kind of a dirty move.
Yeah, I look, if you were on OU Insider, I hinted towards the David Stone stuff prior to it. Like I said, look, there is a defensive tackle that Oklahoma's struggling, and over the last, week or so had been meeting with Oklahoma on a daily basis to try to make it right. But I also said I think they got it squelched. That's what we're hearing. And then that changed, and that changed, and that changes so fast that I literally got off the phone, and the person that said they got it squelched, literally 2 hours prior to that, I had somebody saying, you need to continue to watch David Stone. And I've been told that for a couple of days, but they kept saying they think it's going to work out, think it's going to work out, think it's going to work out. It didn't work out. It is what it is. But that's the type of stuff, like, we try to give people a heads up, at least know there's something going on. And I'm glad we did it on OU Insider because we were vindicated on that. Like, it wasn't unjust or unnecessary drama. Like, there was something to it. So, like, this Danny Okoye stuff, like, there's something to it, but I don't want OU fans to get up in a tizzy over something either that may not happen.
Yeah.
Like, there's a decent chance he stays, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's also a chance that he leaves. So, like, right now, it's in flux, and that's the best we can talk about it. And what we know is it's in flux right now.
Yeah. Well, and some of what we're talking about too is a big reason why people, should consider going and getting signed up at OU Insider, because I've tried to explain this to people who discredit the site or try to
Yeah,
discredit it as you found out information before it happened. Yeah, that's cool, but you also found out information that was behind the scenes that isn't going to be released outside of
yeah,
some OU Insider, and you some discussions that have gone on behind the scenes. And I think the community aspect is what should draw fans into OU
it's
Insider.
fun.
Yeah, it's fun. You get to and you do a great job. So does Parker about setting up different forums where people can just ask their questions, and you guys
Mhm.
somehow are able to answer through hundreds of questions in a day. And so I've got to give you guys props for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I know you guys get quite a bit of hate out there from Oklahoma fans, but that comes with the job, right?
Yes, it does.
But Brandon, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Everybody can go check out Brandon over at ouinsider.com. Get signed up as little as $9.95 a month to start off. If you go get a coffee at a coffee shop in the mornings, you can afford to go get signed up at
Mhm.
ouinsider.com, and it is totally worth it. I can tell you that from firsthand experience, from one of the doubters to where now I've gotten in so much where I've appreciated and trying to give a shout out to your guys' platform on top of that.
Appreciate it.
But
Thank you so
Brandon,
much.
yeah, Brandon, thank you very much for joining me. Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.